Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy, Camel, and I'm feeling pretty rough today, so I'm going to go back to bed after I've recorded this. I mostly wanted to communicate just two things, and then I'm going to duck out, I'm afraid. The first thing is, I've got a whole heap of Bitcoin charts that look fantastic, so I want to show you that. And then the second thing I want to point out is, I've started taking profit on my stock positions, and so I just want to communicate to you exactly what I'm planning to do in terms of taking the profit, sitting on the side, waiting for the cycle lows. Fidelity, in a new report, said the quiet part out loud, whereby they compared Bitcoin to Ethereum. You can see the pre-Genesis block supply, right? The pre-mine was massive for Ethereum, 0 for Bitcoin. The circulating supply, as you can see, are these two numbers here. And the total supply, 21 million for Bitcoin, infinity for Ethereum. So Jordan here pointing out, if you align the 2021 top and use that as the structural top, even though back here we made a slightly higher high, you can see we are on track to see very, very bullish things out of Bitcoin potentially in the not too distant future. Which one of those paths, you be the judge. We also have for Bitcoin the 1 week Fisher transformation starting to turn up at a plus 1.5 standard deviation. This is a pivotal area based on the historical price action and is exhibiting 2017-like behavior not seen in 2019 or 2021. When we are below this level, it tends to incite bearish trends, whilst holding above gives bulls extra vigor. And you can see what's interesting about this is we haven't had a green patch in the Fisher transformation since the 2017 parabola, right? We didn't get it through any of this or any of this either. So is this time going to be unlike the prior cycle? Are we going to be much more akin to this 2017 bull run? That would be nice, wouldn't it? The ETFs for Bitcoin continue to buy 12.5 times more Bitcoin per day than the Bitcoin network can actually produce via the miners. And of course, we're under 2 months away now from the halving, where this level of demand, assuming it stays constant, will become 25 times more. We're also seeing this, okay? The whales are still accumulating furiously, as denoted by the blue up here. Meanwhile, the smaller fry are distributing. So said another way, the small players are selling to the big boys in this current situation. And I don't know about you, but I'm seeing an enormous amount of bullishness in the charts. And yet, all over Twitter, all over YouTube, I'm seeing a massive wall of worry for the markets to climb. I don't know if you are experiencing this as well. People are really, really fearful at the moment. And I don't think it's really justified. So that's nice to see. It is nice to see that people seem to think this rally has to have a huge correction. Meanwhile, as I say, under the hood, the ETFs continue to buy well in excess of the mine supply, and whales continue to accumulate. We also have Swiss Post, the 5th largest bank in Switzerland, has just become the first systemically important bank in the country to offer customers access to Bitcoin and digital asset custody, trading, and savings accounts. So overall, everything looks bullish, okay? Everything looks bullish. However, the weekly cycles are currently a bit wonky. And some of the members have been asking me if we can talk about this briefly. And yeah, we can talk about it, right? But the reality is, we have to let more candles play out before we can actually figure out which one of these weekly cycles is correct. It seems to me, given that the price action has traded well up into this neighborhood since then, that we're not going to get a snap back down into this early weekly cycle low, which tells me we're kind of just going to have a standard weekly cycle from here, comprised of 1, probably 2, 3 daily cycles, or even a 4th one. So expect it to come somewhere in this neighborhood or this neighborhood. And last but not least, in fact, I would say this is the most important, I've started to unwind my positions. I posted this to Twitter yesterday. I said, look, this is the first to be closed out in a profit. This is the NASDAQ. So hopping into the charts, are we going to get breakdown retest resumption off of the DXY? That is to be determined. As I said, we have taken the profit on this NASDAQ. So for now, that's me out of the market. That's me out of the way of the NASDAQ. Is there scope to see this thing push up one more time? Yeah, that's absolutely the case. But I'm just going to sit here and play patient. I still have my S&P exposure. I've still got 2 positions open here, and I'm still riding this Dow Jones long as well as my Russell 2K position. But the reality is, if I pull up the S&P chart and use this cycle, right, the yellow squiggle that I have outlined here, which is a decline into a daily cycle low, a left translated daily cycle that rolls over into a weekly cycle low, this is the most bullish outcome. It is also entirely possible that we find a daily cycle low, do something like this, and then roll over one more time into the weekly cycle low. In fact, if I grab the bars tool and I grab this from back here, it would not at all surprise me if what we're doing is something along the lines of this, right? Daily cycle into a daily cycle low, a lower high instead of a higher high like my yellow squiggle has it suggesting, and then note that this final daily cycle is a left translated, meaning the peak comes before the halfway point, down into that daily and weekly cycle low. From there, we can resume to the upside. So whether we take the set one more high, followed by a rollover into that weekly cycle low, or whether we have already set the weekly cycle high and are going to continue to make lower highs into that weekly cycle low, as you can see, a declining period is coming. Now, if I use this yellow squiggle of mine, we'll be able to draw a trend line somewhere in here. Of course, once that weekly cycle low confirms by a trend line breakout, we'll add the positions back here, right? Or if we're not going to do that and we're going to do this yellow fractal, let me move this out of the way for you, then you can see there'll be a nice entry very similarly somewhere in this neighborhood. So I'm okay to start scaling out our positions here. I'm okay to start taking exposure off, even if we do get one final push higher, as this scenario shows. I know that we have a couple of daily cycles and a weekly cycle low to find, and thus this is the neighborhood where I want to get back to full exposure. In the meantime, all of this move here just kind of aligns perfectly with the seasonal weakness that we tend to see into the end of February, as you can see here. So all of this makes sense. So we've got to find a daily cycle low, roll over one more time. Again, all of that fits with the seasonality. And then from there, we should be able to move higher, as my yellow squiggle here suggests. But I do wonder if instead of make a higher high, we're in fact going to make a lower high. I'm not calling for a crash or a plunge. A lot of Twitter will be, a lot of YouTube will be saying that was it, the tops come in, and this was just a marginal higher high that now has to resolve all the way down to 3,800 or whatever. I am not in that camp of people that thinks that's what's coming. Like I said, I think the most probable outcome from here is something much more like this yellow fractal suggests. But, you know, as I was saying yesterday, that's a bunch of profit right there. I'm going to lock that in. I'm not giving that back. Same is true of this, right? We've got two positions on, and we'll be out of this position if we can get a trendline breakdown, which I suspect occurs in the next couple of days. Probably occurs this week, I would have thought. So expect me to take these both positions off, close out the profit, and sit on the sides until I can find a nice re-entry. The same is true of the Dow, right? Around that same time that we find the weekly cycle low for the S&P 500, not only will we be ready to add the NASDAQ back, but we'll also be ready to add the Dow Jones back. It looks to me like we've probably already seen the top, like maybe something like this is coming. And if I click back into the NASDAQ, maybe something like this is coming. So anyway, out of the NASDAQ, like I said, focus for me today is going to be looking to get out of this and the S&P positions. If we get trendline break, of course, if we continue to push up for a little bit longer, then I'll keep pushing the trades, but expect me to be out of all of those stock market positions. I might continue to push the Russell 2K. We will see. For now, I'm happy to push it because we're both trying to get through this range break and holding the upwards open red support line. So no stress for the Russell 2K at this moment in time. I'm noting gold doing exactly what I wanted to see, right? Hopefully we get a retest of the underside of this upwards open red support line and then a trendline break down as we go and find that weekly cycle low, and that will be my trigger for a short. Same is kind of true for oil, right? Mostly following my yellow squiggle. So if we can do this and continue to follow my yellow squiggle, we'll be short somewhere in this neighborhood. I am pushing all of the crypto related equities, and I only want to add. I'm only interested in adding, so I don't care how much profit I give back. People complain about this all the time. They say, why don't I hop in and out with the fluency that I do with other markets? And I say the same thing every time. All I want to do is continue to add more positions. So I don't care if this comes all the way back down here and then does this. All I'll do is draw another trend line and add another position somewhere higher up. So that's the plan, and I'm sticking to it. And again, as I was saying a little bit earlier on in today's episode, I'm seeing a big wall of worry, right? Markets are sitting here on Twitter's going, oh, that's it. The top's coming in. We're going to new lows. And like I'm seeing all this insane bearishness when really, what are we really doing, right? We've come out, made a massive $10,000 or so move off of this 38k, you know, 38 to 53-ish or whatever. Is some level of pullback expected before the next leg higher? Yes, of course it is. So I'm not sweating this pullback. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think the top's coming in early for the market. And we may or may not have just completed that deviation into CPI for the DXY, followed by breakdown, retest, possible resumption to the downside into that 3-year cycle low. So I expect Bitcoin's going to do well off the back of that, if of course it can play out. So that's it from me. Like I said, the two main points I wanted to make is one, Bitcoin looks really, really bullish when we are looking out a little bit longer term. And two, the stock market positions look to be needing to be unwound. Lock in the profit, right? Sit on the sides, ready to get long out of those weekly cycle lows. If you're new here, this is what we do all the time, right? It's really, and if you're an OG, you've seen me do this a bunch of times. There's a time to be in the market, there's a time to be out the market, and there's a time to go fishing. So with all that said, I hope you're doing well in life. I hope you're feeling better than I am. And until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.